welcome back to my channel, The Grim Reader. I am Kathy Grimm, the Grim Reader, and I am going to try, so my first sort of announcement, so to speak, is I really want to get back into weekly updates, which I did for a long time, and it started getting a little stale, so I stopped. And for a while, I was completely spontaneous, and it seemed to work well for a while. I would just post whenever, with no rhyme or reason as to what I was doing. And that worked well for a while too, but now I just feel for my sort of, for where I am right now, mentally, whatever, I need to get back into a regular reading schedule, posting schedule. So I'm really going to try Sundays. So a weekly video on Sundays. And we'll see how it goes once the semester starts. For some reason, when I used to do it, I did it on Tuesdays, which is the sort of the weirdest day to do a post or weekly post update. But for me, it worked for my schedule. I don't really like posting updates on Tuesday because, like, when is that? What kind of week is that? It's a weird week. So we're going to try for Sundays. And so that's my little announcement there. And of course, stuff is piled up a little bit because of not posting in a while. Sort of chatty stuff first. So we had our outing to this beautiful hiking area in southern Ohio. And one thing that struck me is that the drive there is actually okay, I don't drive, I'm not the driver, but it was sort of shorter than I thought it would be, and it's pretty quick. I mean, we got there, when we came back, we were back sooner than I thought we would be, and even going there. So that was one thing that was interesting. And then another thing that's interesting, so I have sensory overload issues. That's what I'm going to go with today. I really do think I do have some issues with I suppose the correct term is divergence, not diversity, neurodivergence. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on it too much. But what was interesting is on the way there, we stopped at this great bookstore, and I really thought that would be a highlight of my trip to go to this bookstore. And it was nice to go there, but it's called the Book Loft in Columbus, if anyone has been there, and its claim to fame is that there are 32 rooms, so it's very big, but each of the rooms are tiny, and they're connected by way of fairly narrow wooden staircases. And because of my chronic issues to do with feet and mainly my Achilles tendonitis and just walking in general, and then I was wearing my coil shoes that I wear, and for some reason, I like the coil shoes because they help with the foot pain, but they do make me a little wobbly because they're a coil. And I get comments sometimes, quite often, people say, "What kind of shoes are you wearing?" You look at you about to, you're jumping. They're called Z coils. Anyway, I was wearing those, my Z coil sandals, and it made me even more wobbly. And so going up the stairs was anyway, the whole experience was a little bit too much of an overload issue, so I didn't have quite as good a time there as I thought I would. It was still good, and I got a few things that I think I'm going to save the 3 books that I got until the end. So that was that, and then we went to our place, our cabin itself. The frame of the cabin was beautiful, and where it was very nice too. And then we did our hike, which I posted a video about, and it was a very short hike. But the challenge, and where I kind of was pushed out of my comfort zone, but it's okay, was because it was sort of very up and down. So you go into these kind of gorges, so you go down into the gorge, and then you go back up, and then you can sort of, film down into it, which is why someone, I think Sue said, "Well, did you use a drone?" No, it's just because it's so up and down. And I managed fairly well, but with the help of my dear husband, and also there were a couple times when I was almost on all fours, kind of clambering up these different types of stairs that they had. So if I'd known it had been like that ahead of time, I may not have done it, but I'm really glad I did it, and it was fine. And because it was so beautiful and it was a nice day, it wasn't too warm, and it was sort of one of those, it's okay, even though it's a little bit outside of what I should be doing. And I don't regret it at all. And I didn't have, well, actually, the evening and a little bit the next day, I did have some weird spasmy things happen with the heel. It was sort of like, telling me that I had overdone it. But in general, I'm glad I did it. And sometimes I think with chronic pain, we do kind of just pay the price and do it anyway. Because, you can't always just be saying, "Well, I can't do that, I can't do that." Now and then, it's okay to be like, "Okay, I'm going to do it." And it was wonderful, and I'm glad we did. And it was the only hike we were able to do. I wish we could have done more, but we were only there for that one day, and we were both, even my husband, there was at some point we sat down, and I said, oh, I don't, and some people were coming by, I said, oh, I'm tired, I don't work out, and the lady said, I do work out, and I'm tired too. So it was sort of strenuous, but it was not that bad, and I'm glad we went, and it was a wonderful short trip. The thing is, we came back on Thursday, so it always seems like it's in the past. So that was our outing for our anniversary. And yeah, so tomorrow I'm going to get back into really preparing for the semester, which is still 3 weeks away, but things are gearing up. It's August. There's the semester, the new semester is in the air. The students will be moving back and all that good stuff. Now, I'm going to talk to you briefly about something. I think Renee talked about it. She did a video called Being a Rereader, and I posted a comment on it as to the fact that I don't consider myself a big rereader, because I'm not. I don't reread a lot. I don't take comfort in rereading things. I'm more of I want to read something else that's great, because I read so slowly. And to be honest, for some reason, I don't get that much enjoyment out of rereading. I like when I'm rereading the Jane Austens, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It was good. It was probably better the first time for me. I don't know. So maybe that's part of it. But it took, for some reason, some of the stuff she was talking about made me think of earlier books from my childhood. And I was thinking about children's books that I used to read. And it occurred to me that I really liked this trilogy of books. And I'm not even going to tell you what, I have them here because I rebought the whole trilogy. But I found out, so I read these books probably in Germany or maybe even Australia, my two countries that I lived in. And it turns out that they take place in a fictional small town in Ohio. And because I read that, and I didn't even remember the stuff about it being in Ohio because it doesn't figure prominently, and it is a fictional town, or it didn't figure prominently when I was reading them, either in Australia or Germany. I mean, I probably kind of gathered it was America, but America to me was this mythical place where people, Laura Ingalls Wilder. So it wasn't really, it's almost like it wasn't really a real place for me because it was what I read about in books. I mean, I knew it existed and everything, but anyway, point being, when I read that it took place in Ohio, I thought, okay, this is fate since I live here now, and I probably will and be living here forever. I don't think we're going to move. Sometimes we have fantasies about moving to Australia or Germany, but I don't think we will. We like our town. It's not a bad town. I decided to buy it. And I'm just curious if any of you have heard of this trilogy, and it's the What Katie Did trilogy by Susan Coolidge. And I got these beautiful copies. I think it's Virago, but they're very pretty. So What Katie Did first, and as I recall, what I loved about her, she was a little bit like Laura Ingalls. She was a bit of a tomboy. She got into scrapes, and then, but everything worked out well for her. And then, so that's What Katie Did. What Katie Did at school, I think I remember really, really liking the school one. When she goes to school. And of course, I don't remember this one as well, but of course we know what Katie did next. It's what nice 19th century women do next, which is get married. So I just think these are really pretty. So I thought I would get them all and do a reread. This might be a nice thing for me to a comfort thing to do during the semester when I'm just really stressed with everything. Take heart in these wonderful books from my childhood that take place in Ohio, where I live now. So let me know if you know about the What Katie Did books. I think it'll be nice. It'll be a nice thing. Moving on into current reads before I get into the 3 books I got at the Book Loft. So the first one is mainly an audio, but I do have a copy here. And I got this Penguin copy, but then I found out that there is also an Oxford Classics copy. And these are my collection here. On the other hand, I kind of like this copy, and someone was saying how the font in the Penguins is bigger than the Oxfords, and it's kind of true. And I don't know, not that I still like my Oxfords, but I guess I'll just have this one. It's nice to have a book to go into. So this is Dickens's Little Dorrit, and I should do more research as to where it falls in. At what point did he write this? We're both listening to this. It's taking forever. It's a very long book. And it's very, very good. It's very good. Let me know if you've read Little Dorrit. And it focuses on the fact that her father is in debtor's prison, which apparently also Charles Dickens' father spent time in debtor's prison. And for some reason, the debtor's prison is called Marshalsea, the Marshalsea, in prison for debt. And he's done a really interesting job because she's such a sort of angelic, good, meek, introverted, severely introverted character who dotes on her really weird father, who, she dotes on this, and it's sort of psychologically interesting. Like, she needs to dote on him and serve him and be of service, and sort of build him up to things that he's definitely not. Like, she's blind to his, I don't know, shortcomings, I guess. But it she's definitely one of these too good to be true characters. But he's still made her interesting enough for us to find her plausible, I guess, and to a certain degree at least. And I mean, it's a fascinating story. It has all up the typical bunch of Dickensian characters. Some of them I'm not good with names right now, but there's one funny lady. She's hilarious. And of course, the main male protagonist, Arthur Clenham, is also very interesting. He's also a good character, and so he's a little bland. He's also very sort of. He's had a rough life. He lived with his father in China. I'm being vague about plot per usual, but so I would say it's good. But for me, I can already tell. I don't think it's going to be Bleak House good. I really think I have the special love for Bleak House that I don't know if anything is ever going to rocket off its pedestal in my heart. But I'll come back to this next Sunday and tell you more about, get into it a little bit more, the intricacies of this fantastic novel that I'm mainly listening to. It doesn't hold up to Bleak House, but it's still very, very good. Little Dorrit. And I guess one thing to say is how different he is from Trollope. I mean, it's just so funny how they're both these 19th century people. But again, I mean, Wilkie Collins was different too. One character in here, I forget her name. She's the youthful beloved or betrothed almost, although they weren't really betrothed, of the main man, and she's turned into this very flighty, loquacious, silly woman. And the way her depicted, it does remind me of Austen, person who is supposed to sort of make fun of a little bit, who's being made fun of. And also, it's an audio being read by Juliet Stevenson, who I know best from a fantastic movie, Truly Madly Deeply. It's a great movie with what's his name, the guy who died. What was his name? The blonde, handsome fellow. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name, but it's a great movie. It's such a sad movie, but she's great in it, and she's been in other things, and she's a fantastic audio reader. She just does all the characters so well. I highly recommend Little Dorrit, read by Juliet Stevenson. She's great. She's amazing. I don't know how they do it, and she makes all these. There's one character who makes this weird noise all the time, and she does it so well. And she does male characters really well. It's like she really switches her voice. Her range is quite amazing. So highly recommend listening to it from Juliet Stevenson. Now into my buddy reads, which are both going swimmingly. Bulgakov, the Master and Margarita. I think I'm going to love this. I'm getting more into it. I'm now in the second book. Started the second book a little bit. It's getting funnier and weirder. I just love it. There was this scene. Okay, it sounds weird, but bear with me. Someone was on stage, and a human-sized cat comes along and twists his head off and decapitates him in front of an audience. And then another person holds up the head, and then the head talks. But don't worry, apparently the head gets reattached. And I was just laughing out loud. It was just so funny. And I'm like, why am I laughing at a cat tearing a man's head off? It's that wacky, but it's really good. I mean, I just love the satire, and it's really funny. I mean, I think this is going to be a great one. I think this is going to be 5 stars. It's strange, and I'm buddy reading it with Sarah from Hardcover Hearts. We're having a great time. Gosh, if you haven't read it, and if you're into satire, I highly recommend it. And there's a lot of Russian stuff that I don't think I'm getting completely, but it's almost as if, in a way, I don't mind. Like, I sense how important it is for Russian culture, just like Faust, the play is for German culture. And even if you don't get everything, you kind of are still, I'm okay with, like, I could see why it is such a big deal, even though I'm not getting everything. So that's one buddy read. And then the other buddy read with Hannah from Hannah's Books and Cristina from Knitting and Books in Portugal. We're reading A Gentleman in Moscow. Now, I took my cover off. Sorry, I don't have the cover handy to show you. Well, it's over there, but I don't want to reach over. Immortals is 2016 book about the Count Rostov, who's been assigned to stay in his hotel by the Bolsheviks. So, it's interesting because it's very sort of soft and flowy and comforting and soothing, and he has these little memories of his childhood when he was a count and living a sort of magical life in his on his estate. Then when the family, the royal family is assassinated, he rushes back to Moscow, and is put into this hotel, even into a different room than he originally had. So it takes place in the Metropole Hotel in Moscow, and thank goodness that hotel is very big. It has lots of different places for him to eat, to get his hair cut, to meet and hang out, and also to kind of secretly observe big goings on. So there's enough there for us to not get too bored with him. And I think it's going to. So right now, I've just started book 2. I think that there is going to be a sort of atmospheric tonal shift to him, to getting a little bit more sort of, I mean, the fact that he is under house arrest. I mean, this, I don't know how it's going to end, but so far it's very soothing, it's very comforting, it's quite well written. Emma Taus is a good writer, but there is a sort of, because it's so, what's the word, there's not much tension, there's not a lot of conflict. It's a book without conflict, and yet it takes place during the Russian Revolution, or in the 20s in Moscow. So how can a book be so free of conflict, and yet with that backdrop? It's a little bit, it does sort of give us pause perhaps. He's an interesting fellow, Emma Taus. He leads this sort of, what's the word, magical, blessed life and it has had a lot of success, went to good schools, was a financial consultant or banker of some type. His father was a famous banker, or a successful banker, so one has to say, very privileged upbringing, and he's just run with that and decided to turn himself into this writer, and people love his work, so yay for him. And I'll have to see where I fall. I think it's a little unfair almost to be reading this popular work of fiction, however much it's well done, alongside a sort of classic of satire like this sort of canonical Russian work of literature. I'm not sure how, in what canon we would put The Gentleman in Moscow. I mean, it's good popular fiction, so it's sort of like a little bit unfair, a little bit apples and oranges to compare the two. But I can't help doing it because they both take place in Moscow. They just mentioned the Metropole in here. I mean, it's the same area. Those are my 2 buddy reads. They're both going well. So I love the buddy reads, but I can sort of tell that having assigned reading of about 20 pages a day for both books, so 40 pages, that's kind of my limit. And I have to be careful to keep up, which is fine right now. And it's fine in general. And in a way, it's good for me to have a number of pages to be read every day. But it's going to keep me honest in terms of my reading. So there's that. And then at the end here, let me show you the 3 little books that I picked up at the book loft. So going up the stairs to all the different rooms, I kind of focused on fiction, not that interested in nonfiction or, children's books and all that stuff. So the 3 I picked up were, I want to try this one that's been around, Matrix, because it's about Hildegard von Bingen, right? It's Landgraf, who wrote a book that I started but didn't get into that much, Fates and Furies. But it's a mystic. Let's put it that way. That's the first thing I picked up. And then connected to, I think, one thing that Sarah was reading with some other people. She had a read-along that I was interested in, but, you can't do everything. But I was interested in this writer. I'm trying to get the sticker off, which I shouldn't do right now. Shirley Hazard. Now, as I recall, she's Australian. Yeah, she's an Australian novelist that I'd never really heard of. I mean, I know some of the Australians, but she hadn't really been on my radar. And so now she is here, and I'm going to read her work called The Transit of Venus. Literary masterpiece. 2 sisters experience seduction, abandonment, marriage, widowhood, love, and betrayal. Well, yeah, sure. Intricately plotted Greek tragedy. Okay, sounds good. So I was glad to sort of, it's fun when you go to a bookstore and you see something, oh yeah, that's someone whom I'm interested in and I want to get. So I got that. And then last but not least, because I do like these editions and I don't have any of them, plus it looks so cute, and even I can read this cute little book of the Aeneid. It's not that long. It's not that intimidating. It's so cute. It's one of these, is it Macmillan? Yeah, Macmillan Collectors Library of the Aeneid. Okay, yeah, it's pretty dense there. But I had started reading the Divine Comedy, and of course Virgil is the guide of Dante, or whoever's Dante's stand-in is in that work. And so I thought, oh gosh, I should read the Aeneid first. And so now that I had this cute little copy, I sing of Arms and the Man Who Came of Old, a Faded Wanderer. Arms and the Man, isn't that a play by George Bernard Shaw? I think it is. So yeah, there are many, many gaps in my reading of classical works, and the Aeneid is one of them. The Iliad is another one. I've read and taught the Odyssey, but have never read the Iliad. But that's okay. We all have gaps, and it doesn't matter. But I was excited to see. I was looking at all of them, and none of them were like, oh, I don't really want that one, don't want that one. Ooh, let me get this one. And so I got that one. So I think that's my update. And yeah, 22 minutes. We'll try and keep it around 20. I hope everyone is doing well, and I will see you next Sunday. And probably not before, because, once a week is fine. And yeah, see you then. Bye.